Mm. I don't think I can fix that now. Guess not. Hello, Sam. Welcome those who are joining. Just got a StreamYard error about not being able to go live on Facebook. So I guess Facebook is out of the question for tonight. Nope. Oh well, we're just on YouTube for tonight. So hello, Sam, Yankee, Luisa, Bryce, Metika, Gita, Karuna. As usual, we'll give it a couple of minutes for people to join in. Then we'll get started. Hello, Julie. Gita, do you live in Sri Lanka or are you just visiting? Or are you normally in America? Hello, Lilani. Oh, well, I hope your visit in Sri Lanka goes well. There's a good chance that I will be going to Sri Lanka this year as well. I was supposed to go last year. You're a Floridian. All right. Hello, Kumu. All right. I think we can get started. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Honor to the sublime one, the worthy one, the fully awakened one. All right, friends. So today's topic, as far as I know, this is the last Wednesday session I'm doing, unless Bhante and I wrote me into some more. But on Friday, I'll be going to Empty Cloud for the week. So we'll see what happens. But I want to talk about a topic that I feel is very important. It's a topic that I enjoy talking about, and I like to talk about because I think its importance and its meaning is lost in many ways, both in modern Buddhist countries and especially among Western converts. And this is the concept, the vehicle of the Fourfold Assembly. This is something that is very prominent in at least 3 or 4 different suttas. And the Fourfold Assembly, as talked about in the suttas, is women and men monastics and women and men lay people. Now, those of you who are inclined towards, queer and gender studies, and who are inclined towards more than, multiple different types of genders and things like that. One of the terms that I've heard used as a replacement for the fourfold assembly is the manifold assembly, or even just the twofold assembly, which would be lay people and monastics. So however you want to use this, it's up to you. The idea is the same, but as we read through the suttas, and we will read through the suttas and go through what the Buddha says about the fourfold assembly. This is what we're going to see in the suttas, is the men and women monastics, men and women lay people. So whether you call it the fourfold, the manyfold, the twofold, doesn't necessarily make a huge bit of difference. So this fourfold assembly is a symbiotic relationship. What does a symbiotic relationship mean? Usually this is a word that's used in science and biology. One of the first times I remember as a child, maybe 12, 13, hearing this word was I was reading a book about ocean life, and it talked about how the sharks have these little creatures, these little, can't even recall them, fish or whatever, but they kind of hang on to the shark and they clean the shark by eating whatever parasites or whatever, and that's how they eat. And so it's a symbiotic relationship, meaning that they support each other and they help each other. And that is what this fourfold assembly is. This is a relationship between lay people and monastics as a vehicle for the thriving and the flourishing of the Buddhasasana. It is not an exaggeration to say that if there is no fourfold assembly, there is no Buddhism. That's not an exaggeration. This is why it was, frankly, so important to bring back the Bhikkhuni, lineage. Because for many centuries, Theravada Buddhism only had the threefold assembly, because Bhikkhunis died out. But now Theravada has the fourfold assembly again. Not in every country, not every country accepts that yet, but in general, there are thousands of Bhikkhunis now, and this order is growing. So we have the fourfold assembly again, which is good. This is something that I, on my own community, on Maggaseka Discord community, when we read suttas every week, and whenever Ayasu Dhamma or Venerable Pasana, who's a bhikkhuni in Australia, gets to join us, I always make it a point to say we have the fourfold assembly together, reading suttas. Because we have bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, laymen, and laywomen. And even some they, them, and different things like that. So we have this community that has been charged with keeping the Dhamma alive throughout the centuries and the millennia, coming together to read the suttas. That is a wonderful, beautiful thing. And it connects us all with the men and women of the past, all the Buddhist people who kept whether monastic or lay people, who kept the Dhamma alive throughout thousands of years. This is something, as somebody who's known many Sri Lankan people. This is ingrained in their culture that they are protectors of the Dhamma. They keep the Dhamma alive, right? And this is, this is a very noble, valuable goal for a culture to do, to keep the teachings of the Buddha alive and around, and to minimize the degradation of the Dhamma. This is not, eventually the Dhamma will become forgotten. There's no way to stop this, right? Because the Buddha says, Sabbe Sankara Anicca. All conditioned things are impermanent, unstable, undependable. Eventually the Dhamma will become too corrupt, too mixed, too forgotten. Unlike some people, I don't think we're there yet. I really don't think that we've reached the point where the Dhamma is so mixed up and corrupt that we're basically almost forgotten. I don't think we're there yet. Especially the fact that we can read the suttas and see this. The teachings are still there. But the idea of the Fourfold Assembly is to act as that vehicle to propagate the teachings, to propagate the way of life, the Noble Eightfold Path, how we as Buddhists walk the path, to keep that going from generation to generation. And there's also a very interesting aspect to this as well, because it's kind of come down through the Buddhist countries over thousands of years that the monks are the learned ones, and they learn the Pali and they learn the suttas and things like that. And the lay people, they meditate a little bit, probably not. Maybe they just do some, dana and sila. But when we read about the Fourfold Assembly in a little bit, you'll see that the Buddha had high expectations for the lay people as well. The lay people don't get off that easily. So this is very important to have that symbiotic relationship. One of the mistakes that is happening in the West, as Buddhism is kind of growing and evolving, and different types of Buddhism and secular Buddhism and things like that. One of the mistakes that's happening in a lot of Buddhist circles is the feeling that monks are not needed. Some people, Western mindset would be, what do the monks do? They just sit around, they just get fed, they don't actually do anything. They're not making money, or they're not doing this. But the monastics are also half of that symbiotic relationship. There is no Buddhism without monastics. There is also no Buddhism without lay people. Right? This is the point. Both are important. Both are integral, working as a team together for the continuation of the Dhamma. And even in the suttas, you'll see, and I'll talk about this a little bit as we go along. You have to have, what I'm going to say, sometimes it could be taken a little bit out of context, but what I'll say is this, what we see today in kind of traditional Buddhism is like this dynamic of the monks are kind of way up here and the lay people are here. And when you read the suttas and you read the Buddhist, the Vinaya of the Theravada school, what you really kind of see more is a closer relationship, not such a kind of, you know, disparity in you know, the, what would you call, the respect, the power dynamics, whatever you want to call it. Now, it was always that the monastics are, you know, because they're doing something, what they're doing, it's a very hard thing to do, and it is deserving of respect. The sangha is deserving of respect. There's no doubt about that. But there was really no, you can look in the suttas, there's not a lot of like putting on a pedestal like we see today. It was much more of um, a closer relationship in terms of, you know, the suttas and the teachings and things like this. And I think that, you know, one of the benefits of the West is that we can probably, in some circles, move more towards that, closer to balance. Now, very much more traditional person would say, no, this is not right. This is, you know, this is why the Western people denigrate monks or whatever. I don't think it goes that far. I really don't. But this picture that you get in the suttas is that of that closer teamwork, working together. You even get examples of like householder chitta, 5 or 6 suttas where this very well respected layperson even teaches some monastics. This is not, you know, this is something that you do see um, in the, in kind of Western Buddhism or Western quasi Buddhism, secular Buddhism. You do see more lay teachers than you see monastic teachers, for better or worse. Um, but there's examples of this even in the ancient suttas. So why don't we go to the sutta and go through how the Buddha explains the Fourfold Assembly? Hello, Mary. Welcome. Let me share screen here. All right. So we are in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta. This is the Digha Nikaya number, what, 30 something? Oh no, 16. 16. All right. So Digha Nikaya number 16. And we have in this section the appeal of Mara. And so to set the stage here, the Buddha has hinted to Ananda about staying around longer, but Ananda didn't get the hint. So the Buddha has renounced the life force. And then, of course, Mara comes. Okay, so let's read this. And then, not long after Ananda had left, Mara the wicked went up to the Buddha, stood to one side, and said to him, Sir, may the Blessed One now be fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time for the Buddha to become fully extinguished. I always laugh at this because Mara is basically like, get out of here. Come on. You don't need to stick around anymore. You're ruining my work. You know, all these people becoming awakened, following the teachings. Get out of here. Sir, you once made this statement. So this is hearkening back to another sutta where the Buddha is newly awakened. And Mara says the same thing. Oh, you're newly awakened. Congratulations. Get out. Go away. Parinibbana, get out of here. You don't need to stick around. Why stick around? There's no point in sticking around. And so the Buddha says, no. This is what the Buddha says. Wicked one, I shall not become fully extinguished until I have monk disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned, have memorized the teachings, and practice in line with the teachings. Not until they practice properly, living in line with the teachings. Not until they've learned their tradition and explain, teach, assert, establish, disclose, analyze, and make it clear. Not until they can legitimately and completely refute the doctrines of others that come up and teach with demonstrable basis. Today you have such monk disciples. May the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time for the Buddha to get the heck out of here. Sir, you once made the statement, Wicked one, I shall not become fully extinguished until I have none disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned. So let's go over the Pali here, because I want to show you that the same qualifications for the bhikkhus and the bhikkhunis are also the same exact qualifications for the laymen and women. Right? There's no difference in the what the Buddha is saying in terms of the quality of the monastic and lay disciples. So let's see here. Competent, educated, assured, learned. And so it's here we go. Comes to be learned, viyata, vinita, trained, visarada, self-possessed, bahusita, very learned, dhammadara, versed in the Dhamma. This one is Dhamma patipanna. This is practicing the Dhamma in line with the Dhamma, following the proper course, following the right doctrine. So keep these words in mind. This is what the Buddha is, he said he will not become fully extinguished until he has an established sangha of bhikkhus with these qualities. And so the Mara says, today you have such disciples. May the Blessed One now get out of here. And so he continues on, Mara. You said, Wicked one, I shall not become fully extinguished until I have none disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned, etc. So look at the Pali. Bhavati becomes to be. Viyata, learned. Vinita, trained. Visarada, self-possessed. Bahusata, very learned. Dhammadara, versed in the Dhamma. Dhammanudhamma patipanna, practicing the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. Samicci patipanna, proper course, right? Entered upon the right path. Anudhamma charino, following the right doctrine. Same words. Today you have such bhikkhuni disciples. May the Blessed One now get out of here. May the Blessed One become fully extinguished. Go away. Sir, you once made this statement. Wicked one, I shall not become fully extinguished until I have laymen disciples who are competent, educated, assured, learned. Let's look at the Pali. Bhavati, becomes, to exist. Viyata, learned. Vinita, trained. Visarada, self-possessed. Bahusata, very learned. Dhammadara, versed in the Dhamma. Dhammanudhamma patipanna, practicing the Dhamma in accord with the Dhamma. Samicci patipanna, proper course, friendly treatment. You might see this word, samicchipatipana veda. This is in the qualities of the Sangha. When we do itipiso, bhagava, arahang, etc. So this is the same quality of the Sangha seen here, talking about lay people. Anudammacharino, following the right doctrine. And today you have such layman disciples. May the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. May the Buddha get out of here. Sir, you made this statement once. Wicked One, I shall not become fully extinguished until I have lay women, disciples, who are competent, educated, assured, learned. Let's look at the Pali. Bhavisanti becomes. Viyata, learned. Vinita, trained. Visarada, self-possessed, confident. Bahusata, very learned. Dhammadara, versed in the Dhamma. Dhamma nu Dhamma patipana, practicing the Dhamma in accord with the Dhamma. Samichi patipana, entering the right course. Anudhamma charino, following the right doctrine. Today you have such lay women disciples. May the Blessed One now become fully extinguished. May the Holy One now become fully extinguished. Now is the time for the Buddha to become fully extinguished. Sir, you once made this statement. Wicked One, I will not become fully extinguished until my spiritual path is successful and prosperous, extensive, popular, widespread, and well proclaimed wherever the gods are, wherever there are gods and humans. So, how exactly does this happen? Right? How exactly does the teaching, does the spiritual path become successful and prosperous, extensive, popular, widespread, and well proclaimed? Because the Fourfold Assembly is educated, in line, practicing in line with the Dhamma, knows the Dhamma well, right? Whether you're a monastic or a lay person, you have these qualities. So then you are able to make sure that the sasana is successful. Of course, when the Buddha was around, he obviously played a large part in kickstarting that. But if the Buddha was just one guy in the wilderness, people could say that nobody follows that guy. He's a crank. Who knows if he's right or anything? But no, the Buddha built up the Fourfold Assembly. In this Fourfold Assembly was like setting the wheel in motion. Right? He built up this Fourfold Assembly, and then the Buddha's parinibbana. You know, keep it rolling for as long as we can roll it. And now 2,600 years later, here we are, various places in the world, and the internet, where the Dhamma is still rolling, and people all over the world who in previous times before the internet would never have been able to hear the Dhamma can now hear the Dhamma. This is like a golden age of Dhamma. And we as Buddhist monastics and Buddhist lay people should make sure that we are very learned and understand the Dhamma, practice the Dhamma very well, develop our wisdom, develop our insight, become good role models of Dhamma, so that we can make sure that when we pass on, which we will, the next generations of monastics, the next generations of lay people are learned, practicing the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma, know the Dhamma well, etc. Passing the baton on for the future generations for the benefit of the many folk, so that they too can hear the Dhamma. And also you, right? Because it's good for you, because what will probably happen? You'll probably be reborn. Unless you become awakened, you'll be reborn again. And hopefully that, you'll be reborn in a well protected, well taught Dhamma, so you can continue your path to Nibbana. So I will not become extinguished until my spiritual path is successful, prosperous, extensive, popular, widespread, etc. Today, your spiritual path is successful and prosperous, extensive, popular, widespread, well proclaimed, wherever there are gods and humans. May the Blessed One now get out of here. May the Blessed One now go away. May the Blessed One become fully extinguished. When this was said, the Buddha said to Mara, "Relax, wicked one. The final extinguishment of the realized one will be soon." And then Mara did a little happy jig and was like, "Yes, Buddha's getting out of here. 3 months from now, the realized one will finally be extinguished." And so I want to read a paragraph from an article of Bhante Analayo, who writes about the Fourfold Assemblies. Actually, I can link the article. I'm not going to read the whole article. It's just, but it's a good article for you to read if you like. But this is what Bhante Analayo says. In sum, there can be little doubt that the Pali discourses consider the four assemblies to be of fundamental importance for the thriving of the Buddha's dispensation, the Sasana. Their coming into being is seen as an integral aspect of the Buddha's mission and forms a distinctive mark of the Buddhist tradition. This in turn implies that any living Buddhist tradition that orients itself on the values enshrined in the Pali Canon needs to ensure that these four assemblies are in existence, and that each of these assemblies has the opportunity to develop wisdom, to train themselves well, and in this way become self-confident. So this is why it's very important for all of us, monastic and lay, to spend time to really practice the Dhamma, to learn the Dhamma, to understand it. Right? You are doing this right now, aren't you? You're attending a live stream. And when I first started on my Buddhist journey, I wish there were such things as Buddhist live streams back then. But at least I had a few monks with some videos like Bhante Analayo, Bhante Yuttadhammo and Ajahn Brahm and things like that. But I would have loved the live stream like this in my early days. So it's quite easy. Even if you're a very, very busy layperson, when you're doing activities, you can even just put on a Dhamma talk. Now, obviously, ideally, you want to be fully present and be quiet and calm and be sitting to hear the Dhamma. But if you don't have much time for that, then put on a Dhamma talk. I used to have a Dhamma talk when I was doing everything. Driving, sitting, all my activities, I would listen to Dhamma talks. And no matter how busy we are as lay people, if the Dhamma is really important to you in your life, then it should always be some part of your practice and your study. You're not going to become necessarily a master of the suttas. Honestly, I think you can be a monk and study the suttas for 40 years, and I don't know you'd be called a master of the suttas. 5,000 pages is a lot of stuff. But there's always somebody who has more experience than you that you can learn from. Even people who maybe have a little bit less experience than you could still learn from. When I do my streams and people will ask me questions, and I've never heard somebody ask that question or kind of come at a Dhamma from a specific angle before, and that even makes me, oh, that's interesting. Let me contemplate that. Let me investigate that. But as we see from this sutta, the Buddha is not, the Buddha wants all of us to be well versed, well learned, confident in the teachings, practicing well, whether we're lay or ordained. So if you feel you have strong faith in the Buddha and you want the teachings to continue on, well, the buck stops with you. Learn them well, practice them well, develop your wisdom and insight. Teach them to your children or friends and people who ask. We're not a missionary religion. We're not trying to force anything on people. This is why the Buddha even made a rule for the monks that we cannot give a Dhamma talk unless asked. But we can do the best we can to be living role models of the teachings, to try to come at least a little bit close to the monastics and lay people of the ancient days that we see in the suttas, who can be role models for us. Anathapindika, Visakha, Householder Chitta. Right? There's many good role models for lay people in the suttas that you can emulate, just like there's many good monastics who monastics can emulate. But we're a team, right? And we offer each other different things. The lay people support the monastics in their requisites, food and medicine and clothing and shelter. And the monastics support the lay people and support the Dhamma in gaining wisdom, sharing the Dhamma, keeping the Dhamma alive, learning Pali, things like this. Learning a whole other language might be a little too much for most lay people. I mean, I even tried it as a lay person and it didn't work out too well for me. It's not a requirement to know the Dhamma. But, this is becoming a monastic is kind of like the pro leagues in terms of study and practice of the Dhamma. Even when you read even though the Pali words are the same, it might not necessarily be exactly the same level. What's learned for a monk might not be exactly the same as learned for a layperson, but it doesn't not have to be that either. Each of us are in different levels of our path, and each of us can put as much work as we deem appropriate and necessary as we follow the path. But it's up to all of us working as a team to keep the Dhamma alive, supporting each other, depending on each other. No, there is no Buddhism without monastics. There's no Buddhism without lay people. There's no Buddhism without the Fourfold Assembly. So this is, I think this is probably enough on this topic. I think I've probably exhausted everything I can say about it, at least unless questions bring up anything else. But now I think we can move to a Q&A period. And we will do questions and answers until there's no more questions, or we run out of time, or I get too tired and end it. We'll see which one is which. But now, if you have any questions for me related to Buddhism, related to meditation, related to monastics, related to the topic, the Fourfold Assembly, you're welcome to ask those questions in the chat. Karuna says lay people can definitely study Pali. Yes, yeah. I know at least one or two lay people that know more about Pali than I do. That's for sure. Of course, they're young and like savant style, you know, probably on the autistic spectrum kind of guys, but they really know their Pali. Sometimes I even, you know, on my Discord, on my community, sometimes when they would be on in the past, I would say, you know, such and such, what's this? And they say, oh yeah, it's this. Like their memory was just like that. So I got a little lazy though. I was using them too much instead of relying on myself. But yeah, you know, this is definitely, I think lay people should at minimum study the meanings of the important Pali words. What's dukkha? Tanha, Sankara, like at least the very important Pali words, studying and understanding their different contexts and the different ways you can translate them. Like people might say, Bhikkhu Bodhi's translations are the best, or Tanasaro's translations are the best, or Bhante Sujato's translations are the best. And you can look it up in the dictionary. You can see every one of those translations under the word, right? It's not like they're making things up. This is what, you know, the word can mean, and different translators choose different ways of translating. But it will definitely help your understanding, able to deepen the Buddhist teachings, your understanding of the Buddhist teachings, if you at the very least study very important Buddhist Pali words, at the very least. Hello, Amaranta. I see twice. Ronald. Natu. All right. Well, I don't see any questions. I guess I'll give it another minute or two. And if no questions come up, then we'll just call it a night. King has a question. Who is Mara? It's a good question. So, Mara in the suttas is a type of being. It's debated a little bit of like where you classify Mara. One of the classifications that come to mind is that he is a kind of deva being. But essentially, Amara is a being that thrives on trickery and keeping people outside of their domain, right? Keeping people enraptured in sensual pleasures. Keeping people, he kind of gets like a pleasure, like a kick out of watching people trapped and enraptured with their craving. This is why it's bad for business when a Buddha comes around. Or the Buddha might get, the Buddha will keep people in their domain, and we won't be able to see them, right? Because the Buddha explains that when you are in your domain, this usually means when you're practicing satipatthana, foundations of mindfulness, Maras cannot see you. When you are a fully awakened being, they can't find your path. Like a bird leaves no path in the sky, a Mara can't find you. So these are beings who, thrive and relish your craving and your unskillfulness. Mara is also called the Lord of Death, so related to death as well. It's very common in modern Western circles to say, Mara is just like an aspect of your mind and things like this. And interestingly enough, you could probably point to two suttas where the Buddha is essentially kind of basically saying, like, this part of your mind is a Mara. So there's a small percentage of suttas where the Buddha is speaking about a Mara in terms of in your mind, but the overwhelming majority of suttas, Mara is an actual being that you can be reborn as. I'm sure I've been a Mara many times. There is a bit of a trickster in me. I like pushing people's buttons. So I do like to be a little bit of a troll. So I'm sure I spent many a millennia, on duty as a Mara. So yeah, that's who Mara is, to the best of my ability off the top of my head. I see your question, Kristen. I'm going to do Luisa's question real quick because it's shorter. Actually, it's not even really a question; it's just a comment, and then I'll get to your question. But Luisa says, Bhante, funny you mentioned that you used to listen to Dhamma all the time. Ajahn Brahmali said not to listen too much, but I disagree. I can't get enough and listen to Dhamma talks all day and night. So in the beginning, it's important. I don't listen to Dhamma. I haven't listened to Dhamma talks in 10 years. There's no need for me to listen to Dhamma talks anymore. I mean, other than obviously in person. But I don't listen to Dhamma talks. I listened to thousands over 7 or 8 years, and I got to the point where, okay, all I need is the suttas. And if there's a talk that's talking about something specifically in the suttas, like somebody like a Bhante Analio or an Ajahn Brahmali or Bhante Sujato, is speaking about something specific in the suttas, I'll listen to that. But I don't need to listen to Dhamma talks anymore because I can read the suttas, right? But that was not the case for many, many years. For many years, for a good 7 years, I had to just kind of soak in that Dhamma talk, soak it in, listen to the Dhamma all the time, for so many years. So yeah, I think there's no problem in that. What I think can happen is that you just consume it as something to listen to, or all you're doing is listening to Dhamma talks and you're not actually doing any practice. I think that's probably where Ajahn Brahmali is coming to. Or it becomes like just something you consume, something just to have something on in the background. And so there are unskillful ways that you're listening to too much Dhamma. But for the most part, especially in early years, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Kristen says, what are some examples of the suit from the sutras, the Buddha giving advice regarding lay followers and wealth? Would it be wholesome to make more money so that we can be more generous towards monastics? It's good to be generous. I don't know that would necessarily need to be a reason to make more money. So the Buddha talks about, there's one sutta where the Buddha is a financial planner, where he talks about, he says, this amount of percentage you should keep for savings, this amount of percentage you should you should spend for daily things, this amount of percentage you should use in business or whatever. So he gives a little bit of like a breakdown of the various ways you should use your money. So there's a few suttas like that where the Buddha kind of gives advice, but mostly it's more about the dangers of greed in relation to everything, money being one of those things, obviously. So you have the role model of Anathapindika, who was the richest guy around, but he also got his nickname because he was so generous and always giving. And part of his story, you don't see this in the suttas, this is comes later, but part of his story is that he gives away so much, and even he lets people borrow money and they just don't pay him back, which is pretty common. It's like, this is why wise people say don't borrow money. If you want to give people money, just give it to them, don't expect it in return. But he would give lots of people money or even have them borrow, but they never pay him back. And he went through this series of things where he became poor. He lost all his money, and he kept giving and he kept being generous, and then eventually he got his money back again. But so it's really not about how much you make or why you want to make more. It's more about skillful relationship with it and use for it. There's nothing in Buddhism that says, oh, you're a bad person for wanting to give your family a better life and things like that. That's not there. And there's not a demonization of people who make money either, in Buddhism. That's also not there, right? This is, may even one of the later chants in metta chants is, may people not be deprived and not be separated from their fortune justly acquired. Of course, there's some people who will say nobody gets rich on justly acquired, which is not true. But that's kind of a perspective that some people have. But so that's what I would say about that. Let me search my my Google Keep Dhamma compendium to see if I can find at least the one sutta where the Buddha is the economist. Um, I wonder if I have it or not. Hmm. Doesn't look like I have it off the top of my head. But you are on my Discord, so if you want me to look for it later, you just send me a message, and I'll look for it. Amaranta has a question. Bhante, I've been practicing with this Sangha during 2 years, but for some reason this is difficult for me to travel. What would you recommend to improve my practice? Here there are not Buddhists. Yeah, so I mean, I think this is very common. People in different places in the world, and even different places in America, even where you just don't have a local community. So the best you can do is having an online community. Right? That's pretty much the best you can do. And you know, I think it's even better if you're not part of, like, it's one thing to, like, go on follow a monastery and attend all their streams. That's not necessarily, you get some aspect of community there, but not the full aspect of community. It's a hard thing. Even the same thing with, like, Buddhist forums. You get some level of community. You probably get a little bit more level of community on a forum because you're talking about a variety of different things and you have it back and forth. um, but really we're kind of, we can only deal with the hand we're dealt in terms of local Buddhism near us or not near us. So the best you can do is listen to the talks and have good kalyanamita, good spiritual friends. If there are people in this empty cloud Buddhist Insights community that you want to be able to talk to things about, talk to each other about things. Maybe you create a Facebook group and you can talk, or maybe you just email each other or something like that, so that you can at least go a little bit further than logging in, listening to a talk, and maybe going a little bit back and forth in a talk chat. The Discord community that I run is, we read suttas together, people meditate together, you can talk, there's a lay life discussion, there's all these different things that are a bit more community oriented that you can't do like on a YouTube live stream. You just can't do that. You might be able to do it on a Facebook. If you have a part of a Facebook group, then you might be able to do a little bit more like that. Some kind of group where you can have more contact and more time to discuss things like that. But yeah, having kalyanamita, having good spiritual friends that can support you, and you can gain some confidence and some desire and joy in the practice from, that's very important. Kumu says, what benefit does Mara get by keeping people trapped? Is it just pleasure, or is that his or her job? Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a job. I don't think any, other than the Buddha, I don't think any type of being is listed as having a job. I think it's just something that's part of what that being does. Don't even human beings can get some pleasure out of torturing other people, physically or mentally or emotionally, or tempting people, things like that. So I mean, does he get benefit? No, he causes, he probably creates a lot of bad karma for himself. But We pretty much all, if we do that, no matter what existence we're born into. All right. I'll give it another minute or so just to see if there's any more questions, and then if not, we'll call it a night. Sam makes a comment. Although, Sam, I don't know, the Buddha talks mostly in the suttas, when the Buddha talks about being debtless, he talks about it in relation to, um, being free from various mental defilements and things like that. Not necessarily as like being free of financial debt. Actually, the Buddha and um, the the top monastic disciples actually say that monks are debtors. Right? You until you become awakened, you are a debtor. The lay people are giving you things, and you're in their debt. And the way you pay that debt back is becoming awakened. Mahakassapa, the grumpy old man of the Sangha, the ancient disciple who I most connect with, said, "For 7 days I ate the country's alms food a debtor." Then he became awakened, so he wasn't a debtor anymore. But this is a very important aspect for monastics to reflect on, that they're a debtor, right? That they do owe something to the lay people. Um, you know, that because it can be very easy to kind of just fall into this thing where just people keep giving things to you and bowing to you and saying, "Oh yeah, I deserve this. Oh yeah, this is how it should be." No, you're a debtor. What are you doing to pay back that debt? Don't rest on your laurels. Don't get lazy. Just like somebody who's in debt and the interest keeps racking up, they got to make sure they pay off that debt. Bhante, do you find it improper when people use Sangha as a generic stand-in for community like the lay Sangha? No, this is a word that has a variety of different meanings. And even in the suttas, we have the Bhikkhu Sangha, the Bhikkhuni Sangha, and the Arya Sangha. Right? When we pay respects, reflect on the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, it should always be remembered that the Sangha in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is the Arya Sangha. Those are men and women who have attained at least the first stage of awakening, Sotipanna. And so that means lay people and monastics. So the Arya Sangha is not just monastics, it's lay people and monastics, the Arya Sangha. So when you're going for refuge to the Sangha, you're going for refuge even to lay people. Lay people who have attained at least the four kinds of persons, the 8 kinds of individuals. That's people who are on the path to stream entry and who have stream entry fruition. On the path to once returner, the fruition of once returner. On the path of non-returner, the fruition of non-returner. The path of Arahant, the fruition of Arahant. Those are the four pairs of persons, the 8 kinds of individuals. And even in the suttas, you had up to even non-returners for lay people. Lay people as arahants, that's a bit of a different story. That's a bit more nuanced thing to discuss. But the Buddha in one of the suttas, actually, this is part of the talk I probably should have stated, where there is a section in the suttas where the Buddha is asked about, his disciples, and he says that I have 100, 200, 500, and more bhikkhus who have attained these 4 levels of awakening, bhikkhunis who have attained these 4 levels of awakening, laymen and lay women who have attained the first 3 levels of awakening. Right? So the Buddha is saying that it is very numerous, both laymen and lay women who have attained these higher states. Right? So this is not necessarily something that is just about monastics, the Sangha. All right. So I don't see. Oh, what is the spiritual meaning of your type of dressing? What's the meaning? So in ancient India, one of the ways there was part of the culture was the samana tradition. These were men and women who kind of checked out of society and went into the wilderness looking for awakening. And they dressed in various different ways. Some of them had dreadlocks. Some of them went naked. Some of them, acted like dogs. They did everything like they were a dog. And some of them, shaved their heads and wore robes. So this is a very ancient tradition for Buddhist monastics to shave their heads and wear robes. It sets them apart from, the regular people, so that it's very clear who they are, and understanding why they wear the robes and why they're doing what they're doing. All right. I guess we're probably at the end. I don't see anything else. But, all right, friends. Well, Suki Hotu, may you be well and at ease. Practice well and be well. May you have a spiritually successful and peaceful practice until we meet again, which, who knows? I'm sure I'll be on a stream or two next week at Empty Cloud. So you'll probably see me again then. And then after that, who knows? But have a good week, friends. Practice well.